recall, Justine did mention QR codes a couple of classes ago, and they definitely are a good way for you getting your message out and connecting with your audience. So we asked Justine to give us a little illustration of how she is using it. So we'll give you about 12, 13 minutes, Justine, if that's okay with you.
Hey, I'm honored to get to present to my colleagues, and you all just stop me with any questions. So the first is going to require your phones, though. So as I share my screen, we're going to do a little real-time practice. I do come from a K-12 education background. That is my background. So get your phones ready. A lot of the work that me and my team get to do is on culture and communications. So for me, I tend to be more like Mr. Bloomberg on the call. I like to show up places early. I like to see what the tone is. And when that's not possible, and even when it is, and I get to be together in a space with people, I want to know what are some of the values, what are some of the beliefs, depending on the topic that we go to. So if you all could humor me a little bit, and this will give you just an idea of the capacity of, there's lots of different systems like this. You should be able to use your phone to snap this QR code, and then it should contribute to you all being able to vote on this. And then it should show us real time. So we'll give it a test run.
You're using Mentimeter for this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Yep. There's a lot of options out there. And then I am going to show you all too how you can create any website, any web page into a QR code if you don't know that already. But this is Mentimeter. And they have a pretty low rate for an annual if you want to be able to do branding. So you see our team's logo, and then the background pictures are some AI images that my team generated. So those are also, you know, original.
When we finish this, you can pop the Mentimeter logo URL into the chat, Justine, please.
Yes. Yep. No problem. Yep. And then you notice too, it's showing you real time. If people are thumbs upping, you can choose different engagements for people to interact. So what this does for me as an advisor is it kind of lets me know who's in the room, especially if it's a crowd I'm not used to working with. Most of my experiences have been in more workshop style. This is also just fun, depending again on the specific topic, to highlight that we all have different communication norms. So even in our space here, you see that you have an array of how we expect others to communicate with us. So a fun way to kind of highlight that real time. I will keep going because there are a lot of bells and whistles. You can do a lot of cool things. I've embedded some different quotes that would be part of my presentation as well, and go back to culture and personality. This is just, again, if you all want to click this QR code and test it, this is another option. I'm just showing you 3 options. These are topics that have to do with different trainings that we do, but you can ask virtually anything, especially if you want to create a Wordle, or you say, you know, what do we all feel as NSA members of this cohort? Whatever the thing is, it gives you a very quick pulse on who's in the room, what are their perspectives. And we heard a lot from Bill this morning, but I think that that's so important that you just continuously have the relevance and have a pulse on how people are feeling, what they're experiencing. So that you're
getting the same response as the first QR code.
I'm sorry?
I'm getting the same response as I did when I had the first QR code.
Okay, so when you clicked it, thank you. When you clicked it, it didn't take you to this one.
No, it took me back to the previous one.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's see if we have another. Again, this is just to highlight what's possible. You can do a stoplight. This is a question about when it comes to conflict in the workplace, I tend to ignore or avoid. So I'd be curious as we finish, you know, this is again just to highlight one system that we use at our team. I would be curious in the chat, you all, what other systems you all have used, how you've seen success with real-time polls. I like Mentimeter though, because you can customize the design. It's usually pretty seamless, but thank you again for pointing out the tech stuff, because this is a test run as well with this particular presentation. Any thoughts, questions? Go ahead, Ms. Brooke. I see you.
Hi, yeah, thank you so much. This was a great demonstration. I noticed that when I took a picture of the first QR code, your entire slide set showed up on my screen. So I was able to scroll through and go to the next prompt that you had before you had advanced your slides. And I can see the value in that. But I've also been to presentations where you can only see the one prompt at a time. And I'm just wondering if you could speak on that for a little bit, pros and cons, or.
Yeah, I don't, like I said, I would not call myself an expert with Mentimeter in particular, but when it comes to engaging your audience, I would say Brooke, it just depends on how well you know them, if it's a recurring series, if it's something they're used to interacting with. If I were doing this for like a large group as more of like a keynote type talk, I would probably not even, I would just use like one slide. And whatever the central focus is, I tend to think very complex, and sometimes that loses people. So this is just a test run to show you all a couple different examples of the types of graphs you could do visually. But I'm very big on the real-time data and what are people in the room saying, what are they doing? So I think it's really up to how well you know. And then again, I've realized in a lot of presentations, I go way too far down my own little rabbit trails, and that loses people. So I would say err towards one slide maybe of what your core topic is, and then maybe a similar one throughout, depending on the length. And Mr. Adair.
This is slightly tangential, but something that I want to use a QR code for that I know is available, but I haven't quite done it yet, is on LinkedIn. You can use it as an in-person alternative to a business card. You can just have a QR code ready on your phone and people can QR code it with their camera. I haven't done it yet, but I want to, and I just thought it was topical and tangential to this concept.
Yeah, I think I love them. I always do feedback surveys at the end of any workshops that I do. So I often just do QR codes. I'll go to you in just a minute, Jen, because that brings in this other kind of business strategy one. So for all of you who do consulting, advising, those types of things, one of the things, in addition to human-centered data surveys and cultural surveys with teams, we also provide an accountability dashboard. So people reflecting on their leadership actions. But this is an example of if I am doing an exit ticket and I want to use our system to model that as far as an accountability metric. When you are in any page like this, so this is part of what we offer, but it can be any website that you're on. And to Kevin's point, if you want to create even like a QR code for your LinkedIn profile, you can, and apologies if you already know this, but you can go over to your browser to the 3 dots, and I'm in Chrome right now. You're going to click on Save and Share, and you can create a QR code. So for any web page you're on, say it's a Google form and you're like, I don't want to put this into Bitly and shorten the link, literally just go to that browser corner if you're in Chrome. I can't add that. I'm a little biased because I don't use a lot of other browsers, so I'm not sure. But then you simply can create a QR code to take people to any web page, anything. So I just wanted to insert that because I just discovered that a couple years ago, and it's been so much of a game changer. Instead of people like, well, I can't access the Google form, I can't access Jotform, to just put something on a presentation too. Jen, let me stop sharing.
Hi there. Thank you so much for sharing this. So I wonder, QR codes work well when someone is seeing a presentation and they can use a phone and do this. But what about if they're watching you on their phone? So can somebody access a QR code, because you have to take a picture of it. You have to not take the picture, but you have to put your camera up to it. How does that work? Like, so for example, on LinkedIn, I've thought about doing a QR code, but a lot of people are using LinkedIn on their phone.
You mean on a live
access?
Like a live
I mean, no, I mean anything on your phone. I mean, I'm saying like if I had on my LinkedIn profile, for example, click here, this QR code for a call. If they're doing it on their phone, how do you access a QR code when you can't use your camera on it because you're actually using it on your phone? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I wouldn't personally, because you're going to then have to create more steps for people. So in the chat, I'll put it again. There's another way, like even with Mentimeter, for example, or Qualtrics, like Erica said, or SurveyMonkey. This is just, you can use obviously the link, and people can tap on a link. So if
Right,
you're,
okay.
if you don't want to share a QR code, this is just like if you want to use a QR code for something, but clearly like that's going to create more issue if you're putting a picture of a QR code as a LinkedIn post and then people
Right.
have to screenshot it and go through a bunch of things
I'm
instead of,
not saying that would be like your whole they'd have to click on the link to see your post. I'm just saying
Oh.
from your phone. I mean, even if I was on this call right now using my iPhone
right.
instead
You'd
of
have
the
to go to
screen.
the chat. You'd have to go to the, which I suspect Connor, so
Okay.
that's why he suggested that, because you'd have to go to the chat then. So if you,
Okay.
I should have prefaced that, if you do find yourself that you're watching this on your phone, you're gonna have to go to join that poll. You just click on the link.
Okay.
So yeah, there's certain settings where it's a great question, because there's certain settings where it's not gonna be. But if you're in a large room and you need a pulse,
Oh, yeah.
for
Yeah.
me, it's a dream, because I can see real time, and especially like John, if I can't show up someplace early, I can get a better tone, even for something as simple as like, how'd we all sleep last night? And then you give options for that, like just simple things. But I think it gives you a really good pace of then where are people at in the room.
It's interesting, Jen, I had that same issue on the phone a couple of days ago, trying to figure out how to use a QR code. I didn't know about saving the QR code, Justine. Thank you very much for that idea. In terms of the people who are on the call, do you see is anyone else using QR codes right now? Can you see how you might be able to use them?
I use them like when I do a webinar. At
Right.
the, my last slide will have a QR code on it.
Yeah.
That'll either take them to my website or take them to my book a call with me or whatever.
Right. Okay. Justine, any other thoughts? Really simple, clear, concise, well done. Any other thoughts or comments before we move on?
I just want to add, I think it's a great reminder, Justine, to use these as audience engagement tools. Because like I said, I use it to, click this to book a call with me. But earlier in the presentation, to use them as a way to do a poll or something, I think I need to remember to do that because it's very effective.
Right.
Just one other, I love the branding of it. So I've used Mentimeter, but I use like the basic, but what you created just makes it look so much more polished with the branding. So I'm going to look into getting the subscription where you can brand the different slides. But I love Mentimeter. It's a great tool for engagement.
If you nerd out like I do about data and cultural data and those types of things, that to me, it was worth it, Dr. Tish, because it gives you different reports. It gives you different mechanisms to make it, that type of thing. Thank you all.
Thanks, Justine. Give it up for Justine. Yay!
Yay, thank you.
Okay, all right. I think one of the other points about it is that given the audience that a lot of you either are or going after Gen Z, etc., the interaction is really critical. So things like QR codes are important. Out of curiosity, how many people here are familiar with Talkadoc? 1, 2, all right, okay. Maybe we will actually, I'll put a link into that, but that's another vehicle for communicating with your audience, which a lot of speakers are now using. I'll put in the Mentimeter link, Justine, into the homework kind of page, and I'll also put in the Talkadoc one. And if you want to use Mentimeter or Talkadoc, just go onto the YouTube and watch a couple of videos. It will really help you. Kevin, Tish, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think just be ready to practice this a lot with your friends so that when you're doing it, you are comfortable with it. This is not something you want to do for a 20 or 100 person keynote the very first time and not have practiced it a lot with some of your buddies. And your buddies are right here. These people are the ones who you can use. Just contact them and say, can I do a quick demo with you? See what they do. So these are great ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Tish?
And I use it to enhance the experience, not and not to just do it for the sake of doing it, but does it add value? Does it support what I'm saying? Does it make sense? Sometimes we have all these like awesome toys and tools, and we want to interject it into our talk just because it's available, but it may not make sense. And so I would say, when you get your hands on these toys, I'll call it, that you can just do so much with, just make sure that it makes sense and it adds value to what you're talking about, but don't just interject it just because you have access to it.
I've been in some meetings where they have these surveys like this and they say, well, that's interesting. And then they move to the next topic. And so it's not really, you know, we put all that work into putting our response in, but all they do is show it to us. So be ready to have a story that will follow it, content that will follow it, or something really important that you're going to say. You might do a chat box waterfall afterwards so you can talk to some people about what's going. Connor?
Okay, we've got about 5-6 minutes before we just take another quick break, and then we'll have John on at 11. But I'm just intrigued. Well, any questions, we'll take them. But I'm just intrigued as to how well your little mastermind groups are going and how many people are actually attending them at the moment. Catherine, I know you've done a lot of work in making yours happen. Is it going okay?
Yeah, it's good. The first couple weeks we had some, people coming and not coming. And this last time there were only, I think, 3 of us. But the 3 of us had a good conversation and learned something from each other. And we're meeting every week. So we assume everybody won't be there every week. People have other stuff going on in their lives. For me, and maybe others can speak to this, I feel supported by just being able to talk to people in between this larger group. Like, it helps me integrate what we covered in the class.
Right. Can you imagine, Catherine, what you could write if you wrote a book that was like what Bill Cates wrote? Words and things to say, narratives. I mean, this group that you're involved in is going to give you all kinds of ideas on that. Yeah.
So who else is involved in groups? Kevin?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed let's see, I think I've been able to attend 2 so far, and both were very solid and supportive. At the most recent one, we even riffed on some content that could potentially become part of a presentation or a speech that we might give in the future. I like that a lot. We also have set up a regular moment of goal sharing. So just verbally sharing with our cohorts and our team members what our goals are for that week, and then meeting weekly and giving feedback on how we think we've reached those goals. I think that's good. And it also helped, in this case, just this week, prep for this particular session that we're in now. So I'm very pleased.
Right. And are you in a separate group to Catherine? Is it a different group?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so there's supposed to be 3 groups. Did the 3rd group actually happen?
Well, our group, we have not been able to meet, if I can be honest, trying to find the time. I did send out an email last week. I think people are pretty busy, so I don't know how to handle it from this point on. People have so much going on, so we've not been able to actually meet in our group.
Right. I would say that you should maybe give it another go, Isabel, because I'm sure there's at least 1 or 2 other people in the group that you were assigned to that would be interested. If after another week or 2 is not going to happen, I think let's connect with one of the other groups. But to me, I think given how useful these can be as you try to grow your business, and as Catherine said, how supportive they can be, the people who are not getting involved in this are missing a trick.
I'll certainly do that. Ray did respond and he offered a date and time. So before I jump to another group, I'll take him up on that. He responded to my email. So we'll probably start with that. And then I'll send out another one to see if people are able or have time to get on. People have lives, so it's totally understandable.
Right.
People are the thing, but I'd love to be in a group because it's it helps.
Well, one of the scheduling tools online is a device called Doodly, Doodly, where you can actually offer a number of different dates to the people that you're sending the email to. And if 3 people say yes, Wednesday afternoon at 6 p.m. is okay, just go with that.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
Connor, a couple questions on what's a chat box waterfall. Can I do a quick one and I'll show it to him?
Go for it, yeah.
Okay, so I'd like you all to go to this is called the chat box waterfall. It's fantastic. It works all the time. I don't know if you've ever asked a group on Zoom, so what do you think? And everybody's staring at you and nobody's saying anything. Kind of like what happened here a few times today. So, but if I want to hear from everybody, I would say, everybody, please go to the chat. I'm going to ask you to type an answer to this question. I'm only going to give you 30 seconds. Don't hit enter. Wait until I say to hit enter. Here's the question. As far as you can remember, what was it that was most useful for you with the Bill Cates experience? Just type for 30 seconds. I'll tell you when to hit enter. Don't hit enter. Okay, hit enter. So now we have answers coming in like a waterfall. And if I wanted to, I can go back in and I can pick anybody and say, talk to us a little bit about. So I might say, Emma, talk to us a little bit about, and then I would ask Emma to call on the next person. That person calls on the next person. That person calls on the next person. And then after about 4 or 5 persons explaining what they wrote, I'd say, send it back to me. So I'm not going to talk to all 17 or 18 of us. We're just sampling. But I am going to save the chat with those little 3 things down at the bottom, little, and what that will do is it'll save the chat so I can go back and look at it, and I'll see some of the things I might have missed. And if I'm speaking to a group that I'm being hired for, I can go back in and talk to those people at a future date. So this is a way to get everybody to contribute. It's good for them because it makes them think, yeah, what did I get out of that? It's good for me because I'm getting interaction. And it's good for the general discussion because people are looking at what people have written down. So that's called the chat box waterfall. You can make them write it in 30 seconds or 45 seconds. 60 seconds is pretty long. Somebody that didn't happen today, somebody almost always hits enter too soon. And you just let that go. It's kind of funny, but you just let it go. But then most people will wait. If you remind them, we got about 10 more seconds, don't hit enter. That's the main thing you want to say. And then when you say hit enter, you notice everything comes in. And so what I have then is I have a community sharing their answers to this question rather than only the raising hands or only the people that want to jump in when they're unmuted. Any questions on the chat box?
One way that I use it, actually, Kevin, I try to look for a really specific answer on it. So we'll do this again with Bill Cates, just a different question. And I'll ask you to just type in one number and we'll count to 5 and then we can hit the button. On a rating scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate Bill Cates' presentation? So don't just type in the number. I would say, all right, you've all typed it in. Okay. All right. Hit the chat, hit the button. Right. So you can see there just immediately kind of a very good overview of the presentation. And someone actually did type in 12 at the very start. That was funny, like what Kevin was saying with those things that happen. But what I like about it is that I can give you really concise information. I prefer to just get a one word, etc. Forget one question, then we'll take a quick break, and then we'll have the wonderful Mr. John Blumberg.
Sorry, so it's Pragati, so just a question for
Pragati. I know. I'm sorry.
So just a question for Kevin. Like, what is the psychological impact of having people wait to like that 30-second and that 45-second? Like, why do you do that in particular? Like,
Why do I do 30 seconds or 45?
Yeah, what's the psychological impact that you're after?
Well, we want to keep it short. And I think it's just my experience. Mostly I do 45. I've done 60 a couple times and I notice people stop typing after 45 seconds. They're just staring at me waiting for something. So I found that most people can get most of what they want in the 30 to 45 second range.
So sorry, my question is more on like why make people wait? So like when you have a question and if I
Oh,
have
why do I make them wait?
Yes.
I don't want them influenced by somebody else. I don't want somebody to say, well, Brooke already said what I said, or Isabel already put in what I want them to have their unique contribution put in. So that's why we wait.
And it's also called the waterfall. So all of them come in at the same time. That's basically what the logic behind it was originally, I think.
Yeah, so they're not influenced. You're getting everybody to contribute. That's the main thing, is everybody contributes. Because otherwise you have some people, I mean, think about our group. Some people are just on the quiet side and they haven't said anything yet in 3 sessions. And then some people have said a lot. So we want to equalize that a little bit.
Thank you.
Okay.
Laurie, does that help you with what your question was?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, look at your watch.